everybody, welcome back to Facebook Live. And for those of you who are new joining, I welcome you. And for those of you who have joined me before, I appreciate you returning. As I always say, if you are tuning into this now, there's a reason. Someone or something bigger than us brought us together. So we're going to take questions, and feel free during this to write in and ask your questions. But I always appreciate when they're more generalized, meaning universal, so that we can all benefit from what we're talking about. So let's start with the first one.
So I have the first question, and it's from Wendy, and she was asking, when you get the icky, sticky feeling, how do you know when you need help from your guides on a soul level versus help from someone here on a physical level?
Okay. So that icky, sticky feeling, I love that. And it's, the way I say it is I feel covered, where all of a sudden I feel irritable or anxious or frustrated or depressed, but it's not my energy. So that's one thing. And that happens to all of us. It's like taking showers every day. It's good hygiene, right? We all collect, dirt and debris from walking through this world. We have to take care of our energy and stay grounded and balanced. So that is something you can do typically on your own by going within, always, number one, praying and meditating, getting clear on the intention, calling in Archangel Michael to cut any cords, to release any negative energy, Archangel Raphael, the angel of healing, and always your own team in spirit, your spirit guides and higher angels. But sometimes it's hard to be objective and get neutral about situations that we're really tied into. So sometimes we have patterns and we need help breaking those karmic agreements or patterns, lessons. And so it always helps to go see a professional energy healer, someone who can get a clear read and then help you to always working with your team in spirit. Any really qualified, credible professional will always go straight to source first, God, and your higher guides and angels, and they just serve as the vehicle through which that higher divine energy works through to heal you, right? So I would always suggest that you make sure that that's their practice. It's bottom line is you can do it yourself, but sometimes it is nice to have someone else help you do the work.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So, Terry asks for our next question, is it true that our personal enemies are the ones that love us the most because they are contracted to hurt us, or are they just jerks?
Right. I love this question. So, that's funny. Yeah, they are just jerks, but they're only just playing out the role they signed up to do. So, we've talked about in previous conversations, we've talked about pre-birth planning that we do before we reincarnate. So we are in the spirit world with our higher guides and counsel, and we have these sessions where we sit down and map out the karmic lessons we need to both learn and teach. And we do this with certain soulmates or key players in our soul groups. And so basically you agree to take on different roles that you're going to play to challenge and test each other to grow, spiritually speaking. And so when people show up in your life who are really pushing your buttons, and you can label them whatever you want, positive or negative, really they're just, again, playing out this role they agreed to and that you agreed to. So when you pass away and you're back in spirit, you take off the mask and you're able to have a good laugh about it. It's pretty neutral. And you thank each other, again, whether it was, fun or really messy, you thank each other for helping each other to become more insightful and aware and to grow. So at the end of the day, it's based on love. Okay, that's the intention. We're here to help each other grow.
Thank you. So we had a live question come in from Trish, and she's asking if you know of a way to figure out when something is resistance on your part or when you are getting a message or guidance not to do something.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I always say the first hit you get, the first feeling, that's truth. Because after that, your mind is going to run with that and start like analyzing it. And that's where you get into trouble. So the first psychic hit you get, go with that. And that right there is truth. And then if you ever feel something and you feel strong resistance to doing something or hesitancy and like reaching out to someone, that's your guidance as well. But again, that mind likes to cause us to go into doubt and we start second guessing. But I just say, that initial immediate impression is the one you run with.
Thank you.
Nice. So Sarah asks, you've talked about your favorite decks and mala beads before. What other tools do you use every day?
So to be honest, there's not a ton of things I use every day. But the things I use, the intention behind them is to ground me, to get me more in the present moment, and to connect me to something bigger, to source and to my higher self and higher guides. So something I use often, essential oils. For me, I'm really sensitive to scent, and it really shifts me. So there's certain oils that help open up your intuition, certain oils that help me ground. doTERRA is a line I like to use, and they have a product called Balance. I use that every day, actually. I put that on the bottom of my feet. It helps me really get present and grounded. Okay, so that's one. When I'm really good in my yoga mat, that's not every day, should be. But that is a great tool, and for obvious reasons, I don't need to go into that. And then journaling has always been a tool that I use. I don't use it every day, but I use it really often. And, it can be on the computer. It's the way I usually do it. It can be in a notebook or journal. But it's the practice of going within and just processing and dumping, getting it off your chest. So that's been huge in keeping me clear and connecting to my higher guides and guidance.
So Rita and Sonia had similar questions, and kind of paring them down a little bit. They're basically asking what happens when we accomplish a life assignment, and if we don't learn the lesson in this life, do we reincarnate? And then can we ever learn all of our lessons, like early?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, well, so from my experience and hearing from these spirits, it's an ongoing to-do list. So you never are going to get it all done. So you might be overly ambitious and throw down, 100 lessons that you need to learn in this lifetime. But let's be honest, like, those lessons are not going to be, most of them are going to be complicated and they're going to take time. So, most of us, from what I've heard, come in with anywhere from 3 to 5 significant life lessons. Maybe it's learning self-worth or self-love or compassion or generosity. I mean, it goes on and on. But so you check the box after you've learned it. Again, it depends on if you're a fast learner or not, how long it takes. There's no judgment. But the faster you learn it, the easier life becomes, because the more you flow and you're able to just kind of move on to the next. You check the box and you keep going. But for some souls, if they came in, let's say, with 4 specific lessons and they're done, they're either going to exit, meaning die, transition, leave the physical into the non-physical, because they completed what they came here to do for this incarnation, and then they pick up where they left off and into the next incarnation, right? It's that ongoing to-do list. But they feel complete, like they did enough, so they'll be done. Other souls will be done, but they want to take a breather and enjoy a few years, maybe a few decades, and then all of a sudden life just starts getting really kind of boring in a good way. So I've had a lot of readings where I'll say, okay, all your hard stuff you got out of the way before the age of 49, and 50 on is going to be smooth sailing, go enjoy, it's like heaven on earth. I've had a lot of clients say, yeah, I'm 49 right now, and it's all been messy, but it's all starting to get easier. And so the guides basically say, hey, you've earned this, now go play. So you can either play here in this earth world, or you can transition and do it in the afterlife.
Thank you.
So Donna and Shalisa have similar question, so to kind of combine them. They want to know, is it possible to have contact with living spirits, so people who haven't transitioned over, like visions in meditations or dreams?
Yeah, in fact, yes. I think this happens to all of us, where there's people that are alive but you haven't spoken with in years, or even thought about in years, and then all of a sudden you're dreaming about them, or feeling them, thinking about them. So we're all connected, and whether we're alive or we're in the non-physical, it's just energy, and we form these etheric cords. Some look like spaghetti strands. They're translucent like strands. Some are really big, like tree trunk size. The stronger and more in depth that soul connection. And so these cords don't go away. That's why we talk about cutting cords. Like sometimes you can always cut negative cords. You can't cut love-based cords. So whether it's positive or negative, you can pick up on other people's energy. And that's what's happening. And so if that's happening, I would suggest you ask your higher self and higher guides what to do with it. Is this something you need to know about? Is this something you need to release, meaning cut the cords? Is this something you need to act on, meaning do you need to reach out to that person? Or just be and see how the universe brings that back around, where all of a sudden the next day that person reaches out to you, right? So we're all telepathically communicating all the time. It's, again, the radio waves that we talk about that are constantly flying through this world, but it's like how cell phones work, right? It's just invisible radio waves moving through that connect us. Well, the same goes with our psychic telepathic connections.
So Rita is asking, in the process of developing our spiritual or psychic selves, how helpful or important do you feel it is to develop our physical selves? So does being healthy aid in the flow of energy?
Yes. So our body is our vehicle, like a car, right? To get us from point A to B to C through our life. So we want to honor our body as our temple, like be grateful that we have this. And, if you take good care of your body and you keep it in shape and tuned up, just like you would a car, you're going to be able to more easily and gracefully flow through this lifetime and have fun, enjoy your earth school experience. But if you abuse your body and you don't take care of it, that's where dis-ease turns into disease. Life gets really messy. And sometimes we aren't contracted to go through disease. It's free will. It's our choices. So at the end of the day, what I always hear is that it comes down to accountability. So we have to figure out, I don't believe in perfection, and spirits say it all the time. You don't have to be perfect, right? There's just no way. You got to find the middle way. It's all about balance. So you figure out the diet and the exercise and the mental practices and spiritual practices that you need to do to find that kind of middle way, that balance. And yeah.
Thanks. So Terry asks, is every soul that's born with a disability a higher level soul here to teach us?
Okay, so sometimes what I've heard is that a lot of times souls who are old souls who really don't need to come reincarnate because they're pretty advanced. They've learned their lessons, but they agree in that wisdom to take one for the team and reincarnate to serve their brothers and sisters, their fellow soulmates, to learn certain lessons. So if a soul with a disability comes in and is your child, the soul, you don't need to feel sorry for that soul. They're solid. They're giving you, the people around you, the opportunity to learn profound lessons like surrender, patience, compassion, forgiveness of the situation. So those are complicated and difficult, challenging situations for sure. But they allow us all to grow. Other times I've heard that soul who comes in with the disability is the one who needs to learn the lessons around receiving care. So, whether they're handicapped and they need to be taken care of their whole life, that's a hard one. Maybe so the bottom line is it can work both ways. And so it's really about not judging it. It's just, accepting it, surrendering that this is all for a reason, and then making the best of it.
Thank you.
The next question is from Bree, and she's asking if taking like ADHD medication affects one's ability to connect with their spirit guide and their spiritual connection in general.
Mm-hmm. So I've spoken to this in the past with medication. So with whether it's ADD medication or antidepressant medication or whatever medication, it can absolutely interfere if you don't need it. So like if you're using it but you aren't chemically imbalanced, it's gonna mess with things. But if you are imbalanced and you need it, it will only help. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So some of us need medication. And it brings us back to even. And when you're in that even balanced place, that's where you can tap in and advance your own psychic gifts. But again, if you're just using it as a Band-Aid or you're using medication to numb out, I mean, it doesn't have to be medication. It could be any drug of choice. It's going to lower your vibration. And when it does that, it's almost impossible to connect and to feel this higher vibrational spiritual energy.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Bridget asks, how do we know if we or a loved one has bypassed a predestined exit point? Do we or they almost die and come back, or will we even know if it's happened?
So usually this happens in the form of wake-up calls where I've done tons of readings where I'm like, all right, something happened to you between the ages of 9 and 11 and you almost died, but it was a close call. I'm like, yes, I was on a major bike accident and no one thought I was going to make it, and I came through it. So wake-up calls. That's a lot of times when your soul is at a crossroads and you're basically asking your higher self and conferring with your higher guides, am I complete? And if you're not, you bypass it, and it just becomes that big wake-up call or scare. Mm-hmm. But if you are complete, you take it. And some people never know, or they just never connect the dots. So I always thought I was going to die at age 36, and I just always did. And then I got to 36, and that was a death, but it wasn't a literal death. That was when I got divorced. So for me, my entire life changed as I knew it. And it was like out with the old, in with the new. It really was a rebirth on some level for me and the lessons I needed to learn. So, who knows? It could have been an exit point, but instead, I clearly have a lot of work to do. I wasn't done. So I reinterpreted it.
So Trisha gave us a live question, and she's been saying that she's had a lot of nightmares about her sister that's passed. So maybe could you touch on like what it means if we're having bad dreams about loved ones who have passed, not like pleasant visitations?
Right. Well, a lot of times it's our subconscious trying to process and work through our unfinished business, our guilt and regrets, pain, suffering, grief. And it will show up in the dream state because in a waking state, we often don't want to look at it and we suppress it. So a lot of times I've done readings where people are so worried because the dreams are so awful and they're worried about their loved ones in spirit, and the loved one comes through and says, I'm good, we're good. This has nothing to do with me. This is all about you trying to make sense of it and heal from it. So the other thing I've heard, sometimes you are connecting into dark energy. So entities love, that's food for them. They will prey on that. So if you are not in a great spot and you're vulnerable to this psychic attack, these darker entities can take advantage of that in your dream state. And so what I would always suggest, I do it all the time, is just say a quick prayer before you go to bed at night. Ask, that your angels be with you. You're surrounded in love and light, connected to Source. Archangel Michael, please be with me, keep me safe, protected, something along those lines. It really doesn't matter what you say, it's just your intention. And then you don't need to worry about going to that dark place. But you can use your dream state for healing. And then embrace if that stuff's coming up. It's just coming up so you can release it. so you get lighter and brighter and you can move on.
Awesome. So Kurt asks about ringing in the ears. Is that a spiritual sign? Does it have a spiritual significance?
This is a good one. I love that you asked this because I've always known, and Spirit has validated for many years, this is true. It's absolutely, ringing in the ears is, when you can't explain it to like you were at a loud rock concert last night, right? When it comes out of the blue, it's a higher vibrational frequency you're tuning into. It's a spirit energy. So I always just assumed it was neutral or positive, like your dead loved ones or an angel. It wasn't until a few months ago I was having constant ringing followed by major anxiety. My face would start burning, weird stuff, indigestion, all this weird stuff. So then I started working with a different energy healer who she was brand new to me, and she said, have you been getting ringing in your ears? I'm like, yes. She goes, what about heat in, like, sensation or tingling inside of your face? I'm like, yes. She's like, all right, well, another sign of this is indigestion. So I'm like, she got my attention. So she said, Rebecca, this is demonic dark entities that they are basically, you're wide open and they're clinging and they take you into doubt and worry and anxiety. That's what they feed on. And so she said, sometimes, so I told her my whole theory, and she said, sometimes I agree with you. It is neutral or positive, angels, departed loved ones. But if it's preceded by or followed by doubt or insecurity or worrisome thoughts, anything that's negative, she said 9 times out of 10, that's a lower vibrational being. And so what you want to do when that happens is just, don't be afraid of it. Just call your power back. So the minute, it's like turning on the lights, the darkness goes away. So she told me to recite this mantra, and I do it every time, and it immediately goes away. And I just say, the divinity within me, the divinity within me. And you say it over and over, because what you're doing is you're coming back into alignment with your higher self and source energy, meaning I'm only in connection with light and love. And then it falls away. It has nothing to feed on. So I just say that because I want you to pay attention. But a lot of times your departed loved ones, they come around, and if you're in tune enough, your ears will start ringing. Don't freak out. Just make sure you're feeling neutral or good, and then ask them, who is this? And then usually get a thought or feeling on who it is.
I love that mantra. So Mary Jo asked, are you able to like read someone just through a text? How does technology affect your readings? Touch on that, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so every psychic and medium they're different. We all work differently. Absolutely. I can do things over text, over email. All I need is either the topic or the name. And then I ask my higher guides and spirit, give me information. I can get a download. I don't love doing it this way because it takes away from the experience. It's very one-sided. You build on the momentum of me getting on the phone with you and feeling your energy and then downloading, and then you can offer feedback and we can go higher and deeper into that versus me just getting a download over text, sending it to you. That's where it ends. Unless you go back and forth. So I don't love it, but some people actually, that's what they do. They do readings over email or text, and it works great for them. So you just have to figure out what works for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sandra asks, how do we know our spirits who have passed on are in a happy place? Or if they're in a happy place, I guess.
How do we know? Well, really, it comes down to you have to get in touch with them to know, right? So it's either going to be through your meditations because you are asking, are you in a good place? And then you quiet yourself, go within, and hopefully make contact with them. Or if not with that departed loved one, with the guides and angels connected to them, they can tell you. Or in your dream state, you get a visitation and they show you what their heaven looks like. Or through a reading. That's what I do. And really, that's why I do it. To show you, 9 times out of 10, they're in a good place. They're in a place that doesn't have contrast, like this heavy, dense earth world school, right? Earth school. but they're in a place of peace and joy and light. And so it's the living that's struggling, right? It's usually this world that, so they know we're okay and they know they're okay, but my job is to show you that they're okay and that you can be okay too. And that you, I would just say to you, ask if you're wondering, are they okay? Try it out for yourself first. And then if you can't get a clear read, then that's when you would seek out someone to help you and do a reading.
So Rita is, she said as a child she saw and or heard spirits all the time, but as an adult she feels like she's suppressed that gift. So she's asking if you have tips for reconnecting with it and if it's merely just a matter of practice for her to do that.
Yeah, because when we're first born, it's so fresh. Like we were just there on the other side. So it's like second nature. We don't doubt it at all. And it's matter of fact to kids and animals. But as we grow and we become conditioned by this earth world and we are less in our hearts and our feelings, we don't trust our feelings as much, but we're more in our heads and we analyze and we shut down that connection. So, or some of us when we were little, we got afraid. So we saw a ghost or we were visited in a dream and it freaked us out. And so we're like, go away. Well, guess what? You absolutely can reopen that channel, but it's a muscle. So it's like if you took years off from working out, you're not going to get back in shape overnight. You just aren't. But if you make it a daily practice to whatever degree is right for you, you absolutely can strengthen it. And what I have found it comes down to is trust. Because when you doubt, you lower your vibration. And if you lower your vibration, you're not going to be able to tune into all the telepathic broadcasts that we've been talking about, the psychic energy, the visitations, and connecting to your departed loved ones. So if you can work on surrendering doubt and building faith and trust, and then doing whatever spiritual practices help strengthen that muscle, you can develop it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Jamie has a question about exit points, or kind of a few questions that tie together. How many exit points does each person have, and does the soul completely decide when it departs, or is it based also on the actions of the actual person? So like, can bad decisions or accidents have someone depart like before the soul was actually ready?
Right.
Ready?
Oh, that's a loaded question. So, the easy part is we all have different amounts of exit points. Some people come in with one, super easy, and some people come in with 9 lives, 9 exit points, or 100 or whatever. Okay, so the other part of that, this is really complicated. This could be books and books, and there are books and books on this. Okay, we're going to go back to what we've talked about in just about, I think, every Facebook Live. So, pre-birth planning, right? We all sit with our guides and we decide on what lessons we need to learn. So we contract those lessons and then we make a loose script or blueprint and we say, okay, at this point in my journey, I'm going to intersect with this soul and then we're going to, learn this lesson. And then you do loosely, like here's this and this and this, but in between there's all this room for free will. So at any point, the path can change because there's a lot of moving parts here, a lot of key players, and a lot of free will. So even though it's predestined, certain things, events, or situations are predestined, doesn't mean it's going to happen. And it doesn't always mean it's going to happen when it's supposed to. It could get delayed. It's kind of like traveling down the highway and there's a detour. So you thought it was going to take you 20 minutes, but it ends up taking you an hour, right? That's the same with certain intersections or lessons or things that need to happen. You could say I have an exit point at 36, but something else happens that pushes that exit point, and it wasn't your doing. So it's very complicated. But I'm hoping that gives you an idea of how much when I always say your future is not set in stone, it's not. You always have the power to, once you get into a body, rewrite your script or renegotiate or, or delay it or, so in the end, certain events are inevitable, but you might push it to the next lifetime. You might be like, I was overly ambitious. I don't know what I was signing up for. And I'm tired and I don't want to do this. And you then make choices so that you don't come into more drama to learn. You just kind of coast. And then you pick up where you left off in your next life. Okay?
So I think Jessica's will be the last question. And she was asking like how, if we had a bad experience with a loved one before they passed, maybe where they said hurtful things to us before they passed, how can we get over that hurt? How can we get over that?
Yeah. So just because the body dies, the relationship doesn't die. So you are able to work with that soul and find forgiveness and peace and healing before you die and join them in the afterlife. You don't have to wait. And that's why I do my work. So it can work both ways. You know, somebody here is living with tremendous guilt and regret, or somebody who passed on is feeling horrible because they died, they woke up, and they realized the pain and suffering and hurt they caused living people. Well, guess what? That's what they're doing every day. They're coming through the medium to connect to the living to either make amends or healing or whatever needs to happen, so that the living doesn't live the rest of their days struggling and suffering when they could really be free of the burden. So the burden is lifted. So the point is, you can do it on your own, and you can pray and meditate and set the intention with your team and spirit to help you connect to the soul of the loved one who died and find healing. Sometimes I've heard it happens in the dream state because it's more neutral. Your mind's out of the way and it's easier. Spirits and you, a lot of times we leave our body, we astral travel, so we can connect to the essence of that soul, and then when we wake up, we come back into our body, and it feels like it was so real, because it was. So there's all sorts of ways that can happen, but the bottom line is it needs to happen. Because if the loved one who died hurt you, everything's transparent. They know, and they have remorse, and they want to make it okay. And so I think it's important that you do something with that, so you don't carry it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so as always, please keep writing in your questions. Whether you do it when we do this live or you do it ahead of time, we welcome all of your questions. We try and get to as many as we can. I apologize if we haven't gotten to your questions. Maybe send it in again if you're really wanting to know. We get a lot of themes where people, like 5 people, will write in the same question, and those are typically the ones we'll go with because it's telling me that synchronicity is the universe's way of saying, hey, a lot of people have this same confusion or need answers or clarity around. So it's never a coincidence. But anyways, I appreciate you all tuning into this today. I would encourage you in between now and the time that we reconnect, that if this spoke to you, that you start kind of doing your own practice. And you hear me talk about all the time prayer and meditation, and I know it's redundant, but that it's that simple, you guys. It comes down to, we have our own source within us. We don't need to look externally to the Rebeccas of the world. You can find your own answers, and I am loving that I get to do it with you, but I don't even have all the answers. So I have to go to my own source within and connect to my higher self and higher guides, and you can do the same. So I would highly encourage you, play with that. You might not believe me, but I promise you it's true. Okay, that's my little spiel for today. Anyways, it was great to connect with you guys, and stay connected through my mailing list and all my social media. And again, I have digital content. I just want to throw that out there. People always say, how do I do this on my own? Check out my website for my digital content on prayer and meditation. And it's basically holding your hand and walking you through exactly what that looks like. As always, wishing you brightest blessings and all love.